and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kaylee and these are my books. So for today's video, I have my mid-month wrap-up / my recent reads. This is just a video where I give mini reviews for the books that I've read in the first half of August. And let me tell you, August has been a fantastic reading month for me. Not to spoil anything, but I have quite a few 5 stars to talk about. And to give some context, last month in July, for the entirety of the month, I read 35 books, but only gave out 3 5 stars. And in this first half of August, I have read 14 books, and I've given out 6 5-star ratings. 6 5-star ratings. We're halfway through the month of August, and I've already given out double the amount of 5-star ratings that I gave out in July. Like, I am blessed this month. It's really like the universe was just like, okay, we know it's your birthday in this first half of August. We're gonna reward you with all of these wonderful books to read. And man, do I feel rewarded, because this has just been incredible. And not to leave you in suspense or anything, but we are going to start this video with the lowest rated books and then work our way up to what those 5-star books were. So I didn't have any 1 or 2-star books this month so far, but that's because I DNF'd a couple books. I just felt like they were gonna be 1 or 2 stars, so I was like, I'm not putting in the time to continue reading these. So the first of the DNF books was A Secret History, and this I read for a vlog. I will link that vlog below. It's where I read another booktuber's favorites. The booktuber was Raven-Haired Reader. This one I didn't jive with, that's okay, but I'm not gonna talk about too much about why I didn't like it, since I already did that in the vlog. So that, along with a couple other books in this video, I'll just kind of hint at the rating, and the rest of the context will be in the vlog linked below. The next book I DNF'd was Jade, Fire, Gold. This is a YA fantasy book, and it was pitched to me like it's going to be a lot like the magic in Avatar The Last Airbender, and Avatar The Last Airbender is probably one of my favorite shows of all time. Not probably, I don't know why I'm qualifying that statement. It is one of my favorite shows of all time. Top 5 for sure. I love Avatar The Last Airbender. I've rewatched that show at least 10 times by now. And so anything that gets compared to that, I need to pick it up. And Jade, Fire, Gold, I just wasn't really connecting with for some reason. Now, this is a YA fantasy, so I am not the target audience, of course. Therefore, I didn't actually give this book a rating, but I wasn't connecting with it. I got halfway through, I felt like I didn't care about what was going on, and I even felt a little bit confused about certain things. I feel like I never understood exactly how the world works, and I just felt too distant from the story, pretty much. So I put this book down. I don't know, I kind of see why some people compare it to Avatar, but at the same time, I felt like I went in with false advertising. So ultimately, I decided to not finish this book. However, I don't think it's a bad book. It's just not a book for me. And the next book is a similar situation to Jade, Fire, Gold. I picked up The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter. This is another YA, kind of a genre mashup between mystery, fantasy, and horror. And this felt like it was doing too much. In theory, I should have loved this book because it had lots of references to classic Gothic literature such as Dracula, Jekyll and Hyde, Frankenstein, Sherlock Holmes, and the list goes on. However, I felt like ultimately these references to these classic works kind of bloated the narrative, and I felt like it was Easter egg, Easter egg, Easter egg, Easter egg, and each Easter egg kind of pulled me out of the story, because each time it's like, that is a reference to a Dracula character. Oh, there is a Sherlock Holmes reference right there. And each reference it was making me remember that I was reading a book, and therefore I was not immersed in the story. And I just found one of the characters so annoying. And she's supposed to be annoying, and everyone jokes about how she is annoying. And I think she's supposed to be the lovable kind of annoying, but I hated her. I could not read about her. Oh, and one other thing that didn't work for me too is I was reading it through audio, and I think in the physical book there's actual annotations throughout the pages. I don't know what these look like because I didn't have the physical book, but they're either annotations throughout the page or maybe like footnotes are going on. But there's something where the characters are interjecting throughout the story because it's written as if they're writing from the future, and they're making little points throughout the narrative, like arguing in the future. And it was really annoying me in the audiobook. I don't know if it would have annoyed me in the physical book, but the audiobook, the interjections and these arguments, it was supposed to be funny. They were just annoying. So a lot of things were annoying me about the book, and all the references were kind of annoying me after a while because it just felt like too much. It was trying to do too much. I know this is a very, very well-loved series though, and again, I am outside of the target audience. This is a young adult book. So I think it is well-loved for a reason. It does feel like a very unique book for any genre, but especially for young adults with all these classic literature references. So I see why it's well-loved. I think I'm out of the time period where I could have appreciated it more. Now moving on to my 3-star books, the first of which is I Kiss Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. And Casey McQuiston is one of my favorite authors ever. I absolutely adored Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Last Stop. Yes, One Last Stop. Those were both 5 out of 5 stars for me, and I was a little bit nervous going into this book knowing it was young adult and knowing I was outside of the target audience. I liked it more than I thought I would, but however, it was nowhere near Red, White, and Royal Blue and One Last Stop for me. So I Kiss Shara Wheeler is a small town romance-ish, more like a coming-of-age story for quite a few characters that live in this small town. And this small town is incredibly conservative, incredibly religious, and quite restrictive in their beliefs for these teenagers that are about to graduate high school. And so it's just about these teenagers trying to figure out their gender identities, trying to figure out their sexuality within the restraints of the town that they currently live in. So I think this book is doing a lot of important work in representing areas that are not normally represented within young adult literature. And I think it's doing a lot of important work just along with representing gender identity and sexuality and the complications that people have when trying to express their true identities. It's just what didn't work for me, why this book got 3 stars is, one, the main character really annoyed me. I thought she was just kind of mean, and I didn't feel like we got this full redemption for her. I know a lot of people really liked the main character because she was kind of mean, but it just didn't work for me personally. And then it kind of leaned more into the John Green novel, where if you know John Green novels, they're kind of like the manic pixie dream girl type of books where it's just like so quirky and so relatable, and it just gets a little bit cringy at times. I felt like this book got close to that. Maybe it wasn't fully leaning into that, but it got a little too close for comfort for me. So ultimately, while I did appreciate the work that this book was doing, I didn't fully like the characters, and sometimes I was cringing at how some of these like youthful things were being represented. And again, I am a 26-year-old woman. I am not the target audience for this book. So take my review with a huge grain of salt, right? So I gave it 3 stars. I think it was fine. I would recommend it to a younger reader, but if you're an older reader, I don't know, maybe skip this one and stick to Casey McQuiston's adult books. The next 3-star book I actually do have physically, is A Night to Surrender by Tessa Dare. So this is part of a Tessa Dare read-along that I'm a part of, where each month we are reading a Tessa Dare book, I believe in order. I don't know that much about Tessa Dare. I think this is her first novel, just based on the read-along starting with this book, and then we're moving through her works in publication order. So this is a historical romance where it follows these group of soldiers that kind of get stranded in a small town that's just full of women who get sent to this small town. These women getting sent to the small town are not married. Something's wrong with them in some way, where their families are having to send them off to this women's utopia pretty much. And the men get stuck there, and they start to fall in love with the women that are stuck there too. The reason why this got 3 stars is because I hated the male hero in here. This male hero was the stiffest dude ever, and I feel like his character development was nowhere near the main female's character development. Like, the main female character had to change so much, and the main male character's progress was just from being like, women are dumb, into being like, maybe not all women are dumb. So, you know, it was like, is that really development that we should be celebrating? I mean, it is positive development, but he just started from being a super mega asshole into being slightly less of an asshole throughout the book. So I don't know, I didn't love this book. I gave it 3 stars though, just because I did really enjoy the setting, and I did really enjoy the female character in this book. The female character was awesome. I loved her. She just deserved so much better than what she got in this book. And the next and last 3-star book that I got that I read, not that I got, is Queen. I'm too used to doing hauls on this channel, I just realized. The next book that I read that was 3 stars is Queen by Katie Roberts. So this is the last book in her Bloodlines trilogy, which is a reverse harem vampire romance series. And these books all just kind of got 3 stars for me. They're incredibly smutty. There's not much plot in these books. That's why they got 3 stars, because they got a little bit boring after a while. I mean, how many smutty scenes can you read? You know, after a while it just gets a bit boring. They got 3 stars because the first couple scenes like that are fun, and then you just get bored after that. And the plot that we did get was very interesting. I was into the plot, and this last book actually had a lot more plot than I was anticipating. I think we had full plot for the first like 60 pages of this book, which is saying a lot for Katie Roberts books. But it was nice to see the character development from the first book to this 3rd book. There was a lot of character development. There are some cool powers in this book. The vampires are written in a unique way. So I would recommend these series if you like smutty books. But if you don't read these, because there's not enough plot to hold you over if you're not in it for the smut. Now moving on to my 4-star books, and I only had one 4-star book, and that is It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This is my first Tessa Bailey book. I am so happy to finally be able to say I have read Tessa Bailey, because she is so hyped up on any book social media platform. And It Happened One Summer is a romance that follows a very rich, spoiled girl getting kind of banished to this small fisherman's town, and she meets a very grumpy crab fisherman. And obviously they do not connect well at first because they come from such different backgrounds, but they slowly begin to fall in love. And I did like this book, obviously, since I gave it 4 stars. I've heard it being compared to, the main women in this book being compared to Alexis from Schitt's Creek, and I would agree with that. I loved her in this book. Our female character was really a lot of fun to read about, and she had such satisfying character development, just like Alexis in Schitt's Creek does. And my issue with this book, why I didn't get 5 stars, is I feel like just something was missing where I wasn't fully connecting with it. I did have a good time overall. I mean, it still is a 4-star read. I really enjoyed this book. But just something held it back from being full 5 stars. You know, when I read romance books, I want to be smiling, I want to be squealing, I want to be giggling, I want to be blushing, I want to be crying. Like, I want it to give me all the emotions. And this book I was just kind of reading like, oh, that's nice. But not much beyond that. I feel like maybe the reason I felt that way is they just connected too quickly for me. It was almost insta-lovey, in my opinion. They do start out hating each other, but then the hate is like, we hate each other. Just kidding. We're super into each other. And it switches that fast. And I just wanted a little bit more progression from the hate to the love. But overall, I really enjoyed this, and I'm very excited to continue reading more Tessa Dare books. Tessa Dare, more Tessa Bailey books. I just realized how similar their names are. Tessa Bailey is her name, right? Yeah, Tessa Bailey. Tessa Dare, Tessa Bailey. If you want to write romance books, name yourself Tessa. Now, to the most exciting part of this video, moving on to my 5-star reads. I'm gonna start with the 5-star reads I've already talked about in that vlog where I read Raven-haired reader's favorite books, because spoiler alert, 3 of those 5-star reads are from reading her favorites. And those books include Twisted Hate, Normal People, and The Song of the Marked. Twisted Hate is kind of a dark romance, Normal People is literary fiction, and Song of the Marked is fantasy romance. If you want to know my full thoughts about those books and why they got 5 stars, go ahead and check out that vlog. Now moving on to the books I have not talked about so far, first of which being Upgrade. Here is Upgrade. I do own this book. This is Blake Crouch's newest book. I have read Recursion and Dark Matter and absolutely loved both of those books. And so I'm happy to report I also loved Upgrade. Upgrade is a science fiction thriller, and the premise for Upgrade is basically humans can edit DNA now, and we can edit DNA to produce different traits and abilities in people. However, this is such a dangerous ability. Editing DNA in some bugs caused a major disaster that resulted in millions of people starving to death. So editing DNA is now illegal in this world, and yet people's DNA gets edited in this book. I don't want to talk about too much more because it's a spoiler. As with any Blake Crouch book, at least the ones that I've read, things spiral so far out of control, and it's just so fun to read about like these major disasters happening in this book and how our heroes are gonna fix this majorly devastating thing going on. And his books just get so wild, so crazy. I will warn people that this book, Upgrade, is a little bit more action-y than Recursion and Dark Matter. There is a bit of action in this book, and by actions I mean, you know, like the classic SWAT teams going around with guns. Like, we do get description of a lot of those type of scenes. So if you don't like action in books, you might not enjoy this one as much. For me, there was just enough action where I did enjoy it and it didn't take away from the story. I actually liked every part of this book. This is solid 5 stars, highly recommended. If you, especially if you enjoyed his other books, but even if you haven't read his other books, this is a great one to start with. The next 5-star book I have is Malice by Quinn. I have been wanting to read this book for so long. This is a book that Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy and Mel from Melanor Reads both really love, and I've been wanting to read it because of them. I love epic fantasy, but I put it off because they're always so long, and it's hard for me to pick it up knowing like I could read this book or I could read 3 thriller books in the same amount of time. And I always am like, oh, I want to read the 3 thriller books because then I knock out 3 books instead of just 1 book, which is so dumb because these epic fantasy books I always end up loving so much. Like, epic fantasy is probably my favorite genre. So I don't know why I don't read it. But this is me actually committing to reading an epic fantasy book this month, and it was Malice, and I absolutely loved it. The thing about Malice that was so cool to see is we got a lot of young characters in this adult fantasy book. So there was a mix. We had adult POVs and child POVs. And I feel like the children were so well done. And we had so many POVs throughout this book. I mean, I didn't count the characters. On the back, it makes it look like we're only gonna have 4 people's POVs, but that's a lie. There was maybe around like 6 to 8 different point of views. I don't know for sure, but it felt like around 6 to 8. And I loved every single point of view. Normally in books with multiple POVs, there's always one that you're looking forward to, and the rest you're like, okay, let's get through this. I want to get back to my favorite character. But in Malice, every single point of view, I was sad when it ended. For every single one. So I was reading a character's point of view and I'd be like, dang it, no, I need more. And then I would start the next one and be like, wait, this one's really cool too. And end that one and be like, no, I need more. And so like, it would just felt so unique that every point of view I loved. And it made me realize a couple things that I really like in books. Like, I love when there's child bullies in books, and this book had a child bully. Hear me out. I do not condone bullying, okay? Blanket statement. I do not condone bullying, especially bullying children. But reading about bullying children is great because, stay with me, because we get such great character development from it. Either the bully gets such great development and realizes that they shouldn't be a bully, or the kid being bullied gets such great development where they're able to overcome their bully and kind of show the bully like, hey, you can't do that anymore. And so child bullies in books are just great for me to read about, and this had a child bully, and it had that satisfying character development. It had really cool powers. It had a really fun animal companion, and I cried during this book. I laughed during this book. I was so into this book. There were moments in the book where my heart was beating so fast because the monsters are kind of scary. It was just a full-on 5 out of 5 star book. New favorite fantasy book. I need to continue on with the series. I'm going to Barnes & Noble any day and picking up the rest of the books in this series. And my last 5-star book is another pretty exciting one because it is What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I have read 2 other books by T. Kingfisher, but none of her books have gotten 5 stars for me. So I'm happy to report I now have a favorite T. Kingfisher book, and that is What Moves the Dead. This is her newest book. This is only about 150 pages, so it is a quite a short book. I think it classifies as a novella. And this is a book I would highly recommend if you liked Mexican Gothic. I absolutely loved Mexican Gothic. 5 out of 5 stars for me. And this book gave me those same feels as Mexican Gothic. So this is set in a historic time period. I think it's set in the late Victorian age. Well, it's a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's story, The Fall of the House of Usher. However, if you've never read that story, you don't need to read it to enjoy this book. And this book is very atmospheric. And I'm just gonna kind of tell you the vibes of this book because I feel like it's best if you go in not knowing much about the plot. So we have creepy forest and tree vibes, creepy animal vibes, especially bunny animals. I think they're technically hares in the book, but you know, bunnies. and very, very, very creepy mushrooms. So it's kind of like cottagecore horror. And I know those two words don't super go together, but if they were smashed together, the result would be this book. So I think everyone watching this video needs to go pick up that book. It's only 150 pages. You're not committing to anything too big. It's not like I'm telling you to go read Malice. That's a chunker. This book is only 150 pages, and it just gave me such a good atmosphere, such a cool plot. It felt unique while still familiar with the Mexican Gothic connection, but unique in the fact that it was combining these cottagecore elements with horror elements. And I really think T. Kingfisher thrives with this shorter length book because all her books have such a good atmosphere, but in my opinion, sometimes the plot and sometimes the characters suffer a bit, and the atmosphere isn't enough to carry us through the story because her books are normal book length. But with this book only being 150 pages, the atmosphere is enough to provide a full 5-star enjoyment. And this book did have an interesting plot and interesting characters, don't get me wrong, but I just really think T. Kingfisher's strength is in their ability to create really, really atmospheric reads, and this was incredibly atmospheric. So those are all the books I've read so far in August. Let me know if you've read any of these and what your thoughts are. If you disagree with any of my 5-star reads, we might have to fight a little bit. I'm just joking. Please let me know. I'm always curious to hear different opinions. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to give me a like and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you next time. Bye!